welcome to Perspectives. Most of us would do anything we could to avoid spending time in jail, even if it was just visiting. Jack Brady, on the other hand, goes the other way. Anytime he can bring hope to people, he will take that chance. He's had a career going from law enforcement to now college professor. Bringing hope to those in trouble has been a theme throughout all of that, and it motivates his life in many ways, including for many years in Grant County. And so we welcome Jack to the table at Perspectives. And Jack, you're not always comfortable talking about yourself, but we want to hear more about you. Let's start in Texas, because I've never met a Texan who didn't start telling you they were from Texas. Was that formative growing up in Texas? I'm looking here at the town West Columbia.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Texans are pretty proud about the state. Sometimes they get too proud about it, but I didn't realize until I really left how big of a culture that was. So, but yeah, it was a good place, small town, a good place to grow up.
You were a better Texan of going away and then coming back. Is that what? Some people are that way about their hometowns. It's like they appreciate when they go away and come back.
Yep. So
Texas shapes you. A pretty normal childhood, would you say, or?
Oh, I guess at the time you think it's normal. Looking back, I see that my mom had some issues with addictions, and depression was in and out of psych wards a lot. Got addicted to Valium. We didn't talk about it much, so that was a little bit of, that was not trying to figure out what to do with it. And then I find out later my dad and brother have alcohol issues. So we had a good amount of addiction in our home, which I guess is more normal now than ever before, unfortunately.
I think when you do this, as I have a few times, and you get to talking to people beyond the kind of surface conversation, you realize how much biography shapes us all. So those experiences with your mother, as a child, you maybe didn't see it that way, but as you went on, how do you think that was formative to what you ended up doing?
Oh yeah, I remember taking a class at junior college and got interested in criminal justice system, not really realizing how God would use my past to help connect with, young people or adults that have had some addiction struggles. And so I kind of grew up saying, well, I said I would never have an issue with pills or all to do with that, but there was a time in my life where I got depression and took some pills. So I wasn't really, it's kind of like, you need to, whatever you say you're not going to do, you need to replace that with something stronger. And I had not appropriated God as that person in my life until I was in my mid-20s. So that's what, I know that made a difference. It took me out of a really bad spot, and I know it'll do the same for anyone.
We're going to jump around here a little bit. We'll come back to some of those childhood and then going on years, but you mentioned those cycle kinds of things. You see the same thing with people, or different things with people in kind of addiction cycles, that some people see it, they go the opposite way, and then some people find themselves repeating it. As you've kind of added to your education, what would you say causes those cycles to be so different for different people?
Oh, that's a great question. I think if we could figure that out, we could write a book and make $1 million or start a treatment center. But it's interesting how people's teachable moments, usually it's in a crisis, and you see someone that's in a really big crisis and you think that it's time, it's their time, that's their bottom, but then yet they would go back. So it just, the power of addiction, maybe it just speaks to the power of addiction when we have pretty much trained up our mind to believe this is about ourselves. And so it's easier said than done to sometimes lead someone out of that path. Especially if they don't have a lot of positive support around them to challenge that thinking and start believing what God says about them.
You're a professor now, so you have a lot of degrees on your resume, but it doesn't look like, from the pattern of when those happen, that you set out necessarily for an academic career.
No.
You went to college, Hardin-Simmons.
Yeah.
Believe a good Baptist school.
Oh yeah.
And what were you thinking then going to college?
Oh, well, having been like in special reading classes, I was just glad to get out of high school, really. And it was my high school baseball coach. Later I realized that he was a Christian, not growing up in a Christian home. I look back and see that he was the #1 player that God used to put me on that path to college. So I just went to college to play baseball and accidentally graduated one day. That's really what happened.
They just kind of said, you got enough credits, get out of here?
Yeah, they said so that's really what it was. I'll just be honest with you.
Well, what after that?
Well, after that, police work, and police work In college, the degree I had was law enforcement, so we didn't have any probation, parole, restorative justice. We didn't have any of that going on then. So I didn't really know opportunities existed in corrections, probation, and such as that. So when I got into police work, I realized that I had a lot of questions like, why did you do this, and what can we help to keep you from doing it, as opposed to just hurry up and lock somebody up. So I realized, after about 4 years of police work, that maybe probation fit me better, which it did. So trying to discover, this equip people to stay out of the system.
Do you think people know that about those who work in the criminal justice field, as broad as it is, that there's how many of them are college educated? Because you've had something to do with building a program at Indiana Wesleyan that I don't know that everyone would think of, like the police officer on the street being college educated, but is that more and more common?
Yes, it is more common, and it's good for the employers because they have more choices now at college educated folks. Why would they not take someone that's demonstrated success in college to serve? Because the research shows that you're going to get a more professional, better educated, person of integrity. It's going to take care of their business, know how to jump through hoops, know how to take instruction, willingness to learn. All the things you want in a police officer is what we develop in college.
You always ask a professor to talk about their field. You can get a long diatribe, but it's good stuff. What does that, at college degree or some of those courses you talked on, the wider variety of things, what does that bring to other people in law enforcement, maybe in addition to the officer, that they don't get otherwise?
That's a great question because the police culture is a very closed culture, so they're not likely to listen to outsiders. They don't trust outsiders. Most outsiders they work with, they're being dishonest to them. So we need more people of character and integrity to lead our criminal justice profession, and with the relationship with Christ as your basis, you're going to have a servant leadership mentality. You're going to be able to deal with all the negative you see, all the cynicism without getting drawn into it, and you're going to have an influence maybe as important on your peers as folks that you deal with. So more than ever before, the system is calling out for people of character and integrity, compassion, communication skills that can effectively perform the task. So we're sitting at a good place right here.
So you find yourself working as a police officer right after college. Where was that?
Yeah, Austin, Texas, and Wharton, near where I grew up.
How long did that go on?
I did 4 years of police and then 4 years of probation, and went back and got my master's. When I was doing probation is when I realized I need some more skills in the counseling area. So I got an agency counseling master's degree at North Texas State, which is the University of North Texas now in Denton, while I was in probation. So that kind of set me up to have an entry-level degree to teach at the junior college level. And Intercristo brought me to Indiana from Texas to teach here at then Marion College. And so that teaching here, working in adult programs, working in a counseling center, kind of opened up. Had an opportunity to go to a prison fellowship conference with Jim Luttrell and Bob Otis, who was my predecessor here. And pretty much prison fellowship does what we need to be doing. It's like if you get a new heart for Christ, the crime's going to be gone. So I thought, wow, we need to get more involved with this. We need to teach this. We need to do more of it. Well, that led me to become a volunteer with prison fellowship, and going in with fear of them finding out I used to be a cop, sending people to prison. Once I got over that, I realized that these guys, there's a lot of guys in prison that are changing their lives and want to change their lives, and they just need some direction. They need some mentors to help them do that.
I want to hear more about some of those contemporary experiences, but you jumped way ahead past a lot of Jack Brady biography to talk about now. I find a lot of times with academics, and we're both professors, that we kind of list our degrees on a resume, but a lot of times what we're doing in the classroom really comes down to that first job out of college. Mm-hmm. Those are very formative. What did you learn as a police officer and a probation officer that maybe really does shape your understanding of the system that you've been part of? Wow,
that's a great question. The first one is you need to be strong in your faith, because the world outside of the bubble, especially the police cynical world, is going to just suck it out of you. So if you don't know who you are and you're not willing to stand against some of the things that they're you know, trying to get you to do, then you're going to be in big trouble.
When did that moment of faith, really that moment of decision, come for you?
Oh boy, that was probably that was actually those 4 years of police work when I really realized how important it was, because I looked back on myself and I wasn't standing strong. You know, I may have still been in police work. I don't know if I would have been stronger with Christ, because I didn't stand up well to that negative peer pressure, and so that was one factor that led me out. So just being strong in your faith is going to give you what you need to just not get lost in the negative cynicism, and it's going to allow you to treat people with respect. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you don't take someone to jail if they deserve to go to jail, but you don't talk down to them. It's not us versus the scumbags. You know, we're all people made in God's image, and we all have a capacity to be like Him if we would seek Him. So it's going to give you that you see people differently than just what they did. They're people that did something bad. They're not bad people.
I've heard of law enforcement officers saying it's very easy. You spend so much time in the darker elements of society that you think it would repel you, but you get drawn into it as well. See
Yes.
some of that?
Yes. Yeah, it really does. And then you start thinking that maybe, you know, I had some guys that I knew that thought, well, I'm a little better than everyone else, and I can go do this because I'm better than everybody else. Well, that's a setup for a bad fall.
Well, we want to talk some more about how that shaped your life and how you grew from that, because you have continued. You didn't run from the system when you got your chance. You continue with that. So when we come back after this break, we will hear more from Jack Brady on Perspectives. And Jack Brady is far from slowing down anytime soon. So Jack, we think about what you're doing now and how active you are. That had to come from somewhere. You were working as a law enforcement officer, then you worked in probation, and you said I needed more education. Pick up the story there.
Yeah, so having gotten to a better place in college, I wanted to have an opportunity to maybe do that. So knowing that needed an advanced degree sent me back for the master's, in addition to picking up skills I needed for probation work. So that actually set me up to get a job at junior college where I had attended previously, and eventually led me up here to Indiana from Texas.
What I'm hearing is that, I guess, seeing it from the street level, you realize this is a complex problem. So maybe you wanted to get involved in several phases of that. And when we find people in addictions, when we find people in incarceration and all that, I guess what your career has shown is that you've learned that it's multifaceted. It starts in so many ways. Is that an accurate assessment of your life?
Yes. It's very complicated, and different paths get you there. But a lot of the same dynamics are going to play, where people have had maybe a lot of negative experiences, a lot of crisis, not much positive support, not Christian role models in their life. Like I did, and a lot of times when we're in the prison with our students, the main factor as we hear their stories and tell our stories is most all of us had positive role models, whether it was our family, teachers, or coaches, and these guys didn't. Now that's the number one difference. You
mentioned this earlier about prison fellowship and kind of seeing that side of it. Somewhere along the way with your teaching, and maybe that's your day job, you started doing prison ministry.
Mm-hmm.
What was the difference there as far as being part of the system, but then going in perhaps as a volunteer, as obviously with a spiritual mission, a conversion kind of mission, maybe not conversion in the sense that we think of it, but you're coming in there with a different kind of focus than when you're part of the system.
Yes.
Why did you want to do that?
Well, because that's where, number one, it's where I felt led to serve, and then when I did serve, I just saw so many positive things happening, and I think that is the power of mentoring, or whether it's becoming a Kids Hope mentor, or mentoring, or serving the rescue mission. When you volunteer, you gain an extra place in somebody's mind and heart because they know that you don't have to be here. So we're all called to serve, and that's where most of the good things happen, is from volunteers. There's not a not-for-profit organization I know that doesn't utilize volunteers, and most of the work is done by the volunteers. So especially in a prison setting, when these offenders know the rigmarole that it is for you to get in there and the time that you spend to get there, it's an hour or two to the closest prison from here. So they know that you've committed some serious time for them. So, God can really use that and open some minds and hearts.
You hear of people that work in the system. They get discouraged quite easily because there's recidivism and there's a lot of running in place. And let's face it, you're not always going to see dramatic results.
Right.
And yet you keep going back.
Yeah.
I want to know what happened to Jack Brady. Probably a series of things that keep you coming back.
Oh, I guess, and for someone that hasn't experienced a prison or jail setting, to just try it, because you will see that just by showing up on a consistent basis, you see people's lives change. And it's like God used you to help change somebody's life in a significant way. So it's like that's pretty, that's what we're here for. So it's like it seems to happen there quick and easy because they know you don't have to be there. So I've just seen so many lives transformed. It's nothing better than to see, like at one point, the largest drug dealer in Marion became a Christian. He's been out now 25 years and living a productive life. Every case isn't that way, but it just takes a few of those to keep you going.
So you've been here since the mid-'80s, and you went back briefly and came back again.
Right.
So I think Hoosier State can claim you.
Oh, okay. Well, if you want to.
But you know Grant County, and you see all sides of it. What are some of the issues that we see here, and are we different than the rest of the state, the rest of the country, or are they the same issues everywhere?
I think it's the same issues everywhere, and probably comes down to just broken families, which leads to a lot of dysfunction, a lot of insecurities, a lot of seeking after the world for, our needs. And there's only so much. God has a place in our heart that only He could fill. And so as long as we believe what our culture says about you just do it your way, we're going to have a lot of needs. So we have a lot of needs that have to do with a lot of brokenness, poverty.
I imagine you've seen it recycle in some generations.
Oh,
The
yes.
time you've been here, 30, 40 years.
Yes. So it's that's a strong pull. But, God is stronger than all that. So I have seen people that have had generations of those type of addictions and curses on them, like me, that don't have that anymore. So that's what God wants to do. He wants to bring that freedom to anyone and everyone that's willing to seek after Him. You have to choose Him every day. It's like you just can't do one decision, that's it. You have to learn how to walk with Him. And being discipled is another thing that I did not do when I got saved. And I was still believing lies about another person's going to fill all my needs. And then when that didn't happen, that's when I got depressed and took some pills. So, I'm pretty big on encouraging new believers to get discipled, because there's a lot of things that you learn that's not really truth about how the world works when you're just out there trying to fend for yourself. If it really worked good, you wouldn't be looking for a new way to go. So that stuff's not working so good. But it's tough. It's tough given that old way of thinking. You get 20 years of practicing of doing things one way, and it's like, no, that doesn't work. It doesn't work, but you haven't practiced a new way, so you need a platform to do that.
You brought hope to so many people. What have they brought to you? What have you learned from addicts, inmates, people that have maybe recovered or those who haven't?
Yeah. You reap what you sow, and if you sow encouragement, you will reap encouragement. So you get encouraged, people probably give you more credit than what you deserve. Really God gets the credit, but you did make a choice to obey Him and go serve and love others. The Bible's very clear about, those that are the least of these. Obviously, prisoners would definitely be that, orphans and the widows. And so, you just kind of know that you're in what God would have you to do in that. And that, another thing is that we're all broken. Some of us didn't get broken enough to have to go to prison, but we all live with brokenness, and we have more in common than we don't. So it helps you be, more honest about yourself in prison. I've taken people to the prison to share their stories, and they have shared things in a prison and a jail setting they've never shared anyplace else because they were afraid that their church would judge them on where they've come from, when it really is just a testimony of how good God is. But there's kind of that, you don't have that stigma in the prison and jails. Like, we're all in here together, and one of the first things I say is, I just didn't get caught. I did some things, I did some drinking and driving and could have wound up in prison on myself. I just didn't get caught. That's the only difference between me and you. So I'm just one beggar telling another beggar where the food is. So
one thing we know about you, Jack, because it was hard to get you to sit down at this table, you're always ready to give the credit away, and you're always ready to push someone out or drag them to jail with you to go share. Someone in my Sunday school class said, "Yeah, Jack got me teaching." Jack, what do you notice about the people in this community when they go with you, or when they kind of catch a vision for what you're doing? Do they respond well to that and want to keep giving back?
Yes, it's hard to explain, like just to talk about it. But when you take someone with you and they're in there and it's just as a casual observer, they experience it. What I'm trying to explain to you right now, they experience it and they got it. Like Brad Garner's probably the number one example. He's probably volunteered the last 12 years now. Every Saturday he's in a prison. So it's hard to describe, the feeling that you get to know that you've helped somebody draw closer to Christ, make a commitment to Christ, learn to walk with Christ, and then they get out and live right. I mean, nothing's even better than that. I was in Indianapolis recently, and the church that my daughter goes to has a reentry ministry down in Brookside Community in Indy. And I heard about this church. We went and served breakfast at this church, and lo and behold, some guys that I knew from Miami were there. One of them had been out over 2 years. He's now on staff at this church. He runs a halfway house for ex-offenders. So that really fired me up, because I usually don't see them once they get out. There's a few that get out and come back to Grant County, but most of them are not from Grant County that we minister to. So, just different people. They have a different life. They've started a whole new trajectory for their family, and so you don't know what that ripple effect is going to be. It's a big ripple effect, negative, but it's even a bigger one, positive.
And now you find yourself in the classroom as your day job, at least, not in the jail cell. You're right. Still doing both. What do you bring to those 18, 19, 20-year-olds who maybe think they want to get in this field? I'm sure you give them a dose of reality, and you also put them into practice. You drag them to the jail too, but what are you able to say in the classroom that kind of draws on this life? Yeah,
I just want them to not learn it like I did the hard way, and to get a hold of Christ early in their lives and grow that strong, because that's the most important thing in life. Whether we're called to criminal justice or communications or business, it's all about serving Christ. So that is, if we don't do anything else while they're here at IWU, if we help them ground their faith, they're going to be fine, whatever area they choose, because there's a lot of transferable skills that could go to different careers, and God has a sense of humor. Don't ever say that you're not going to do something, because that got me to be a coroner, and so but that's what I just am trying to challenge them to get a hold of Christ now stronger than they've ever done. Let Him lead them, and He can do a lot better than you can.
Closing 30 seconds. Kid in Texas who wasn't even sure what college was to professor teaching more 18-year-olds. Do you ever say God's laughing?
Well, He's laughing. He's got a big sense of humor, and you might as well learn to laugh with Him, because you're going to get to, and we need to be laughing more. God is bigger than we think He is, and can change anybody's life, can change any family's life, can change the criminal justice system one person at a time, and we have an opportunity to be part of that. I'm so grateful to be here at Indiana Wesleyan.
Well, you keep bringing hope to a lot of people, and you keep dragging a lot of us with you, and we're better for it. The community's better for it. We're glad that Grant County adopted you and your family. Jack Brady. Well, Perspectives is about the people and stories of Grant County, like Jack Brady's and others that you hear. If you know someone you'd like us to meet, email us at wiwutv@nwest.edu, or send us a note to WIWU-TV. You can mark that for Perspectives, 4201 South Washington Street, Marion, Indiana, 46953. And I'm Randall King. Thank you so much for joining us.